What is up, Seahawks fans of all ages, and welcome to the channel. I am BK Voiceover, and today we are going to be doing a quick recap over the first wave of free agency that Seattle has taken part in over the past week or so. And as you know, Seattle not one to usually be very active in the first wave of free agency. They usually like to look for a lot more deals, see who sneaks through the cracks on the second wave, but they've actually been pretty active on the first wave of free agency. They've made a couple of decent, good signings, re-signed a couple of our own guys, as well as tendering some players. Did lose a few players in the first wave of free agency, but that was expected. So let's just kind of breeze through these free agency signings and kind of get a better idea where the team stands right now, and whether this will change anything for Seattle's draft strategy, and so on and so forth. So to start off, we're gonna skip over these first 4 weeks because these all happened before the start of free agency. We've all kind of talked these to death. Jason Myers got an extension, much needed. He's now I think with Matt Gay's deal, I think he's actually now the third highest paid kicker, and that's fine because last year he was easily the second best kicker in the league, so I'm fine with paying him that much. We re-signed Phil Haynes to be backup to a 1 year $4 million deal. Could be a starter, play a backup role. We re-signed special teams captain Nick Bellore, as well as inking Geno Smith to a long-term deal. Very team-friendly long-term deal when you look into the specifics of it. So now we'll go ahead and get through all of the new things that have occurred since then. So starting off with the guys who we re-signed, this was kind of a question in the offseason, is whether or not we were going to re-sign Drew Lock or whether we were going to roll with a take a quarterback high and sort of let him be the backup behind him. And this is not slam the door on them drafting a quarterback high. This is probably just more of a hedge to see what happens there in the draft, so they're not forced to go any direction. That's kind of the thing that I've noticed with this approach to free agency so far is, and John Schneider said this himself, is they are going with we're going to hedge our needs in free agency. We want to go into the draft with as few glaring holes as possible so that they can focus on taking best player available. And a lot of the moves that they've made so far in free agency has reciprocated that feeling. So keep going. Drew Lock, 1 year $4 million deal. I'll need to see the contract specifics. I don't know how much of that is like fully guaranteed. Actually, I might have that open over here. 1 year $4 million for Phil Haynes. Is Drew Lock on here yet? Oh, okay. So never mind. We do not have the full contract deals for Drew Lock as of yet. So we'll be waiting on those as well. But in the meantime, I think this is it's a solid deal. It doesn't stop you from taking a QB high if there's one you really like at 5. Again, it's a hedge. If you like somebody at 5, it doesn't forbid you from going out and drafting them. But it also doesn't require you to take a QB at 5. So moving on, we have 4 players that we went out and signed to tenders. Ryan Neal, we signed him to a right of first refusal tender, so it's essentially a 1 year, $2.6 million deal. And then if a team wants to pay him more than that, we get the opportunity to match. I think this is solid. I would not be shocked if a team comes out and tries to pay him more than this. But we'll have to wait and see. I hope that he ends up staying here at this figure because he was one of our better one of the best players on defense we had last year. And then we also sought tenders for 3 exclusive rights free agents, those being defensive tackle Miles Adams, linebacker John Radigan, and cornerback Mike Jackson. So all of these very solid signings. I kind of figured that they would go through and do these. One of the names that is not included in here is Godwin Igwebuike, who was a little bit of a shock we didn't tender because he was by far and away our best punt returner last season, kick returner last season. So yeah, very shocking, but I did see some posts that it could have something to do with injury de-escalators in the contract, and you can't do that if they're tendered. So if that's the case, maybe they're just trying to bring him back on a cheaper deal, but we'll just have to wait and see on that. I would love to have him back one way or another. So that's all of our re-signings. So all the players that played for the Seahawks last year and are going to play for them again this year, quote-unquote play. because these tenders are fully non-guaranteed. You can cut them and save all the money back. Now, moving on to our new signings. So players that played for other teams last year, and we've brought them over to our side of the fence. So the first one, the big one, was very much a shock. Like, it was day one of free agency. Seattle doesn't make moves on day one. That's how they've almost always operated. And I was out of town. I was doing a road trip, doing some hiking in down in Arkansas, in the Ozarks, and we get back to the hotel. We just had dinner, and I'm like looking at my phone. I'm just like, yeah, nothing really shocking. I'm about to go to sleep early because I'm exhausted from the day. And I see we signed defensive end Draymond Jones from the Broncos, 3 years, $51 million. That is right in line with what I expected him to get. It's actually a little bit lower than what I expected. I thought somebody was going to massively overpay him, but no. Got him for $17 million average per year. It's actually a little bit more than this, but it's fiddly bits at this point. But yeah, this is a fantastic move, especially since earlier in the day we had released defensive end Shelby Harris. So Draymond Jones, absolutely a massive upgrade over Shelby Harris. So very much a fan of this move. Very much a fan of this move. Moving on, defensive tackle Jarran Reed. Obviously, Seattle drafted him back in, I think it was 2016. Didn't really leave Seattle on the best of terms. Seahawks were asking him to take a pay cut. He wouldn't take it, so he ended up getting cut. And now he's back. Apparently the bad blood is all behind everybody, and that's great because he's been a productive defensive tackle. He's not the pass rusher anymore that I think Quentin Jefferson was before we also released him. But I do think he is a much better run defender than Quentin Jefferson. Quentin Jefferson was one of the worst interior run defenders in the entire league last year. So signed him for 2 years, $10.8 million. A little more than I expected, but I guess that's kind of his market, so it's not the end of the world. Very much a fan of this signing. We also went out and signed center/guard Evan Brown from the Detroit Lions on a 1-year, $2.25 million deal. I thought this was a fantastic signing. Myself and so many of other Seahawks fans that follow free agency and follow other teams thought he was going to go way more than this. There was Spotrac, I think, even listed him as like getting like 3 years, $30 million per year. He was that good. 2021, he filled in for Frank Ragnow when he got injured. Played 12 games. Was a very good pass protector from that center position. Not a fantastic run defender, but he's definitely not a bad run defender. He's kind of middle of the road in run defense. John Schneider has already said he's gonna play center. Yes, he did play right guard last year, but he is a pure center. Or he's not a pure center. He is built like a center. He's 6'3", 320 pounds. When they moved to the guard spot, he kind of got bullied a little bit more. So yeah, gives us some nice depth. He could start for us, which is really nice. But it's also a draft hedge. We don't have to take a center really high if we don't want to. However, I still expect us to take a center on day 2 with one of our 3 picks. All right. And then just the other day, Seattle went out and signed a couple more players in linebacker Devin Bush, who was a first-round pick, was a top 10 pick back in, I think it was the 2019 NFL draft. Went to the Steelers. His rookie year, he actually played very well. Finished 3rd in Defensive Rookie of the Year voting. And then tore his ACL in 2020, and he just has lost that athleticism that kind of led him to be such a highly coveted linebacker selection by the Steelers. So we know it's a 1-year deal. We don't know how much the money is for. I saw somewhere randomly that it was like 1 year, $4 million, and I got a little bit upset. But apparently that was not. Apparently that was just made up. So we'll have to wait and see how much the actual contract value is. But I can't expect this to be any more than $2-3 million. 1 year, $2-3 million. Just with his production, it's not fantastic. And then this was actually kind of a surprising pickup, but we went out, and this is a guy that I wanted us to go out and get in the off season, but I kind under like if we moved on from Jamal Adams, or we moved on from Quandre Diggs this offseason, I wanted us to go out and get Julian Love to replace him. Obviously that's not going to happen now. I don't think. I don't think the financials are going to work out this year. Next year, I think they're probably going to move on from both of them. But signing a free safety Julian Love from the Giants, coming off a really good year, 2 years, $12 million deal. I thought he was going to get more than this, so this is actually a bargain for Julian Love. He's fantastic part about him is his versatility. He's played everywhere. He's played in the box. He's played as a single high. He's played in the slot as well. He's played every safety position and in the slot as well. So I'm really excited because that flexibility is great. I think where he's probably going to be your starting slot corner, and they're with Kobe Bryant either backing him up, or they're going to try and move Kobe Bryant to the outside, which I could 100% see because that's where he got to start. But yeah, wherever they end up putting Julian Love, it could also be not a draft hedge. It's also probably an injury hedge against Jamal Adams, because it's sounding like he might not be ready for the start of the season. That quad tendon injury is a weird injury. And it might take him a little bit more to get back. So this could be, this could very well be a hedge for the start of the season when Jamal Adams gets back. So could start him at strong safety to start the year and then move him into the slot. So I think it's a great pickup. So very happy with this signing. And then just sort of wrapping up the other ones, the players that signed elsewhere and the players that we cut, we kind of went through this. Gabe Jackson and Ben Burke-Kirven were cut earlier before free agency started, so not really going to go into them. Shelby Harris and Quentin Jefferson, I kind of figured that one of the two were going to get cut, but I didn't think they were going to blow up the entire defensive line. Apparently they are. So both of them are gone. Both of them had some significant cap hits. Cutting the both of them, I think, ended up saving you $13+ million against the cap. So I think that was kind of a no-brainer. And it's fine because Draymond Jones is a direct upgrade over Shelby Harris, and I think Jarran Reed is an upgrade over Quentin Jefferson. Jarran Reed is not as good of a pass rusher, I think, as Quentin Jefferson, but at his age, but I think he is a much better run defender than Quentin Jefferson. So definitely upgraded on the defensive line. Got some help at center. Now Joey Hunt's not the only guy on our roster anymore, which is nice. Devin Bush got some linebacking depth and then also added to our backfield. So pretty solid. So if we take a look at the 90-man roster as it stands right now, let's kind of take a look at how the roster's looking. And then kind of get a better idea of like what has changed. Has our draft strategy changed? And if so, how has it changed? Oh, I guess the players that signed elsewhere, I guess I should go through that too. Cody Barton, he signed a 1-year, $3.5 million fully guaranteed deal with the Washington Commanders to play linebacker for them. They're kind of blowing up their whole linebacking core. Rashad Penny, I think he is going to the Eagles on a 1-year, $1.35 million deal, prove it type deal. I think while I know he enjoyed his time in Seattle, I think he's going someplace where he knows he's going to get more snaps. And with Miles Sanders going off and signing with the Panthers, I think I think he's going to have a really good season. Assuming he stays healthy, I think Rashad Penny will have a great season with the Eagles. And then running back Travis Homer signed a 2-year, $4.5 million deal with the Chicago Bears. So they moved on from David Montgomery. So now they've got it's like a backfield of Khalil Herbert, Travis Homer, and I'm forgetting who the other one is. I think they signed Dante Foreman as well. I think that could be a good running back by committee. But I'll need to double check that. I forget if it's Dante Foreman or not. So anyways, that is all of our re-signings, our new signings, players that signed elsewhere, and cuts. And now if we take a look at the 90-man roster, I think this should be up to date now. This is kind of what it looks like. So your quarterbacks from last season are all back and nice and tidy. Geno Smith will be your starter. Drew Lock will be your backup for the time being. Of course, this is all probably going to change with the draft. And plus, free agency isn't over. There's going to be some more moves that are made after this. But this is just after wave 1. Rashad Penny and Travis Homer went to other teams, I was kind of expecting Seattle to bring back at least one of them. So the fact that they didn't, I was like, I was hesitant in like a lot of my mock drafts to draft a running back, but now I think drafting a running back is a for sure thing at this point. I don't see them not re-signing or drafting running back, as well as probably doing another free agency signing. So yeah, as far as wide receiver goes, no moves made at wide receiver yet. We haven't brought back Marquise Goodwin. I could still very much see them bringing back Marquise Goodwin. But your wide receiver room is still DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett at the top, which is awesome. And then everything after that is kind of suspect. D. Eskridge had a very disappointing year. Derek Young, still very raw. Only had 2 catches for 24 yards in the regular season last year. Cade Johnson, again, only a couple of catches last year. Aesop Winston, Connor Weddington are all are both practice squatters, futures deals guys. So yeah. Tight end, I think is still set for now. I've kind of talked about it before, or talked about it with a couple of other Seahawks fans, but I could see Noah Fant being traded this offseason just because this is a really good tight end crop in this class. So cutting him doesn't save you anything, but if you trade him, you could save like about $6.85 million against the cap. So yeah, that's the only change I could see. I don't see them moving on from Will Dissly. It's just would cost too much this season, but I think they're going to move on from him next season just because it's injuries, man. It's injuries. It's always injuries with Dissly. Colby Parkinson obviously going to stay. Tackle spot, no changes here. I don't expect many changes, if any changes, to the tackle room or to the tackles this offseason. Left guard, Damian Lewis is going to be your starter. No real shock here. Phil Haynes is set to be your starting right guard as it stands right now. Of course, that could change. And then we signed Evan Brown in free agency. So as it stands right now, he is your starter. Joey Hunt is your backup. I think that'll probably change come the draft. All right, now moving on to defense. Nose tackle, nothing has changed. I could fully expect changes to be made here just because with Brian Monet's injury, I could see them moving on from him. I don't think he'll even play at all next season, but we'll have to wait and see. Al Woods also getting up there in age. They could move on from him, but I don't think they'll move on from him this season. He'll be a free agent after this season, but yeah, I don't see him making a move there right now. Your defensive line, you already made a couple of changes. You signed Draymond Jones and Jaron Reed, as well as cutting Shelby Harris and Quentin Jefferson. Miles Adams, you also signed him to exclusive rights free agent or tender. So these two guys are capable starters. I think while they did upgrade, I think defensive line still a massive need in this draft. I could see them I could see them drafting a minimum of 2, potentially 3 defensive linemen. 1 nose tackle, 1 3-tech, and probably another defensive end. But yeah, we'll have to wait and see. I think, yeah, they improved, but defensive line is still very much a need in this draft. Moving on to the linebacker room for outside linebacker. No losses, no additions. Uchenna Nwosu and Darrell Taylor are your starters as it stands right now. Still a pretty solid. I could see them maybe adding another pass rusher as well. Boye Mafe was showing some good stuff all throughout the season. He's a bit raw, but I think he's going to really break out in year 2. Alton Robinson, that knee problem might be lingering a bit longer. I don't know if Alton Robinson will be on the roster come the start of the season. Tyreek Smith also coming back from a hip injury. Hopefully we'll be able to see more of him, but I would expect Seattle to go out, whether it's in the draft or in free agency, sign another rotational pass rusher. For your inside linebacking room, this is where a lot of my concerns are, justifiably, just because Jordan Brooks tore his ACL. He might not be ready to go by the start of the season. Devin Bush was a nice under-the-radar signing. It's a cheap depth signing. He hasn't been the same since that ACL tear. So I could definitely see... I would probably see about 2 more moves. I expect 1 more free agency signing and probably another draft signing. Also, Tanner Muse, he was a restricted free agent. They did not tender him, but I expect him to also probably come back on a cheaper deal. So it'll probably end up being like Tanner Muse, something else. I don't know. Inside linebacker will be an interesting position to see what they do with that, because Jordan Brooks will probably start the season on IR. Cornerback, Tariq Woolen obviously is going to be your starter on one side. Mike Jackson Sr. had his exclusive rights free agency tender exercised, so he is back. He was your starter for most of last year. I expect him to be your starter again, at least as it stands right now. Of course, Trey Brown should be fully back from that knee injury now, which is great. Then Isaiah Dunn, Chris Steele, just more depth. Julian Love, I think, will slot in immediately as your starting slot corner, and Kobe Bryant will either back him up or he'll also play some outside corner, hopefully. Excuse me. Free safety, strong safety, I don't think has changed much. I think Quandre Diggs, Jamal Adams will be your starters, with Joey Blunt and Ryan Neal backing them up as it stands right now. Kicker, punter is all set. We still need to get another long snapper. I know Tyler Ott has expressed interest in coming back to Seattle. He's been good for us. I wouldn't mind seeing him back. But yeah, we'll see. I don't know what direction they're going to go with this. So yeah, that is Seattle's current roster state as of the morning of March 18th. So yeah, I think this is a solid start to the off season. Gives them a lot of flexibility to go best player available in the draft. And yeah, very excited to see where they go from here. So thank you guys so much for watching. For the next video, I'm probably going to do an updated mock draft based on their current free agency moves as well as the free agency moves of other teams. So yeah, keep an eye out for that, my mock draft 2.0. And as always, if you guys enjoyed the video, be sure to like and subscribe to see more Seahawks content. And with that, appreciate y'all. You guys have a great weekend. And as always, go Hawks.